Hello everyone and welcome back to LitGenie once again. I know I'm very excited and you too are. We are once again discussing Mahabharata and what could be a greater enjoyment than that. Well, we started discussing the very important part of the 6th book of the Mahabharata, the great Bhagavad Gita, in our last video, and we have sort of premised a foundational understanding of where this text is coming from us and what exactly is happening in this part of the Krishna Parva. Who are there? What are they discussing? What are the four most important thematics upon which the discussion stands? Okay. So, what we will be trying to do now is to put into place a critical understanding of the Bhagavad Gita from a modern philosophical perspective that requires doing something very important on our part. Because remember, as readers, as appreciators of a philosophy, of a logic, of a theory, as individuals who are trying to do that, we are always the product of our time. So the perspective, the mindset, the philosophical reservations from which an ancient text was written, those parameters, those principles will be very different from where that ancient text will be now received by the readers in 2025, right? And until and unless a text is able to rise above the datedness of its content, it will never succeed to appeal to connect to the subjectivities of its readers from a much later generation. Well, this is something that the Mahabharata manages to do perfectly. The universalistic subject matters, the philosophical reservations upon which this text stands, it seems to be extremely universal in nature. It seems to be absolutely timeless, meaning the problems, the questions asked then hold equally relevant even today. So from that point of view, we will try to look at a critical understanding of this text by examining its ethical, metaphysical and existential discussions, ethical, metaphysical and existential discussions in the light of our contemporary times. So you understand, that truly calls for a critical reading for a reader today. That means all the questions that bother us today, we ask it to the Mahabharata. All the situations that we grapple with today, we take it to the Mahabharata. All the lived realities that plague us today, we take it to the Mahabharata. And still we end up getting answers. That is what makes a text a classical text. Okay? That's why they use the term, the adjective classical for them. Right? Well, so the Gita, composed over almost 2 millenniums, continues to be relevant. Yet it also invites a scrutiny. That means you can carry out your own relevant examination of the text in a world shaped by what shapes our world today. First and foremost, scientific rationalism. Then we have the issue of individualism. This is on the rise. That's the dawning of the modern understanding, the rise of the individual, and the global ethics. So we will take these 3 categories, scientific rationalism, individualism and global ethics, to take to this text and see how still the reservations of the Bhagavad Gita or the observations of the Bhagavad Gita hold itself relevant from these 3 avenues of questioning it, right? Well, the first and foremost category that we discussed, that I just mentioned, was the question of the ethical thoughts, the ethical investigation of the text, and see whether still the ethics upon which the Bhagavad Gita stood, the ethics that the Bhagavad Gita discussed, the ethics that the Bhagavad Gita questioned, are they still relevant today? If so, how? From what perspective are they still holding relevant for our lives, which is so very different from the lives your Arjuna or your Krishna lived? Right? Well, ethical dilemmas and the concept of duty or dharma is the essential controversy, the clash between your ethical dilemma and the call of duty or dharma is the central controversy upon which the Bhagavad Gita stands. Because you see, that's precisely the controversy. This clash is the dilemma that poor Arjuna is suffering from, whether he should Listen to these dilemmas he is having, because once he enters the Kurukshetra battlefield, remember, whom will he be facing? He'll be facing Bhishma, his Pitamaha, the one father figure in his life who has brought him up, who has nurtured him, who has taught him everything that he knows, who is the ideal Kshatriya in whose light he has developed himself. Then he'll be facing Dronacharya, his great teacher, who has taught him to become the great warrior that he is. Then he'll be facing all his cousin brothers. He'll be facing his uncles. So this dilemma he's facing, how could he raise an arrow to them, and not just raise an arrow, maybe possibly successfully kill them? So obviously Arjun is suffering from an extremely painful state of mind, where he is suffering from this ethical dilemma. Which is greater, your duties as a Kshatriya or your responsibilities to be fulfilled, which needs to be required here, which needs to be fulfilled here for the war to be a success? And remember, this is not just any war. This is a war of justice. Dharma Sanstharpana is what this war is looking at as a purpose, right? So that's Arjun's social dilemma. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, what does stand? His dharma as a Kshatriya. If you have been born into a Kshatriya clan, if you are born a warrior, and you are as great an archer as Arjun was, and then your own dear blood relations have been disrespected, your own wife has been disrespected, your kingdom has been snatched away from you, and the responsibility of coming to terms with all those malpractices lies on your shoulder as a Kshatriya, it becomes your responsibility to enter the battlefield and fight the war. So what do? Go with the ethical grounding of your upbringing, of the history of your family, of who you are, or go with your call of duty. Now this is the dilemma we were talking about that Arjun is facing, right? Now let's try to understand, how does this dilemma have any resemblance with the contemporary times? I mean, question is, are we faced with any such dilemma? Think of it. The dilemma of where you come from, who you are, and the dilemma of what you are expected to do. Well, does it ring a bell? Think of it symbolically. If we look at this word symbolically, don't we find a similarity between what comprises this war, what's the reason behind this war, what's the foundation of this war, and the war each one of us are fighting on a daily basis, professionally, socially, culturally, within the premises of our family? It seems like a philosophical war, a symbol of a philosophical war that immediately echoes our lived reality, isn't it? We'll hold that thought. Let's continue from there. Now, the Gita's emphasis on dharma, or the element of duty, the way in which Vedavyas or Krishna Dvaipayan chose to look at it, the term dharma as duty in the Mahabharata, it raises questions in a modern world where moral choices are often ambiguous. Well, if I do something, it ensures me a success in my job. But question is, while I was growing up, all that my grandparents taught me to do, all that my parents explained me to be choices to be made in life, it seems what needs to be done here for that raise, for that promotion, for that designation is at loggerheads with that thought. Sounds a bell, right? So you see how it echoes a modern warfare also, which we all are going through. Well, so moral choices are often ambiguous for us today, because on one hand we know that this is going to ensure me success, but on the other hand we know that if we do that, something within us will not allow us to be comfortable anymore. So it's ambiguous. What do? Do I vouch for success in favor of success in the face of a moral dilemma? What is it that I do? Arjun's dilemma, which is the dilemma of whether to fight against his own king or whether to fight against his own king, this question reflects universal moral conflicts. What do we do when countries go to war and we are asked to be allies? What do we do when the moral thread within you asks you to raise your voice, but you know that if I do that, the institution within which I function, whatever it is, maybe a university, maybe a corporate house you work for, maybe the principles around which you teach, all of them become questioned because I'll be thrown out of this institution. But on the other hand, if you compromise with them, the principles within you keep eroding at your core. So you see, this moral ambiguity leads to moral conflicts. However, Krishna's insistence on duty, what does Krishna tell Arjuna? He says, Arjuna, you do not be bothered about the outcome of what you're expected to do here. As a Kshatriya, what is your job? To take up your bow, to take your arrow and to let it go. That's it. That's the end of your job. That's your duty. In which direction this arrow goes? Whose chest it pierces into? Who falls drop dead after that? It's beyond your capacity of judgment. It should be beyond your concerns, because that's after you have done what you are expected to do. Your duty is over the moment you have let the arrow out of your bow. So what does Krishna do? He lays a deep insistence on the element of duty and duty without attachment. What does he tell Krishna? Don't be bothered whose chest this arrow pierces. You are not to be attached to the direction and the end that this arrow reaches. All that you should be bothered about is the capacity of your hand to pull that arrow out, to place it on your bow, pull it and then let it go. That's your action, karma. And that you are expected to do duty because you were born a Kshatriya, you are an archer, you are a bowman. Right? So, Krishna insists upon duty, and that too, duty without attachment, which in the term that it is expressed in the Bhagavad Gita calls for Nishkam Karma. Nishkam Karma, where what I do is not attached to what I expect out of that. Right? So that is how Nishkam Karma, the concept of unattached duty, unattached action, enters the premise of our discussion. So Krishna's insistence on duty without attachment, or Nishkam Dharma, may seem like a rigid one in today's world, where ethical decisions involve negotiations, a very popular term today, empathy, and context-dependent reasoning. This is bad. Bad for whom? Bad where? Bad for what outcome? Understood? This is what we are constantly doing on a daily basis. Ethical reasoning dependent upon the context within which we place that decision. So all of these modern reservations tell us that possibly the way Krishna talks about Nishkam Karma might be too rigid of a reservation, because today's moral philosophy is influenced deeply by existentialism. Remember? The rise of the self. And of course, what is related to existentialism? Consequentialism. I stand, hence I decide I do, and what is the consequence of what is done by me? Well, often values of individual and moral autonomy are looked at as predefined roles. But the way Krishna dissociates between our association with what we are doing and what is expected for us to do no matter what is where a catch point lies for our understanding. A catch point which allows us to come to terms with what we are plagued with the most in the modern times, which is desperate disillusionment. If you think of it today, whatever we do, we study hard for an examination, we try too much for a job, we go ahead and give too much of ourselves into a job because we essentially are geared towards that, what's the outcome of it? Meaning, whether I got through with the admission at this institution, whether I landed that job, whether I was promoted or received a very high increment at what I worked for so hard, and the moment it doesn't happen the way we had thought, what are we suffering from? We start suffering from a deep sense of depression born out of a disgust and disappointment for ourselves. Maybe we were not good enough. Maybe we did not put enough of effort. But the question is, what's the philosophy that the Gita teaches us? It teaches us the journey is what you should be bothered about. Meaning, that effort I put into the examination, that should be the fun I draw out of it. That effort I put into getting off the job, the pursuit, that should be the fun of the journey. That very much hard work that I put into the job, which I was expected to no matter what. Not because of the increment that was promised or the promotion, but because I enjoyed doing that job. The moment we are able to practice, first and foremost convince ourselves and then practice this, which is very hard, of course, I know, this acute sense of disappointment and disillusionment, which seems to be unavoidable in today's world, in today's life, seems to go down the scale. You realize, okay, I did not get the job. What's the botheration? I worked too hard for it. In the process, picking up some skills which I was not very good at earlier. Or maybe I did not get to see that great sunset that everybody had promised me on that vacation. But I did take that nice little hike that I enjoyed through the woods before I came onto the stop. That hike was really good too. So it's not always about the outcome of the act, but about the act itself. So nishkama karma, unattached action, unattached association to the call for duty, without expecting or be bothered about what happens after I have done that. Because that's not what I can control. That's the result of the divine design, the universal design, the cosmic space will decide that. But what can bring me acute peace, acute enjoyment, happiness, satisfaction is, how did I do it? Did I do it better than how I did it last time? Is this version of me better than what I was yesterday? And is it giving me a lot of enjoyment? Does it make me feel good about what I just did? If so, then the call of duty, my dharma, as what am I supposed to do, is served. Right? So that is the first premise that the Bhagavad Gita discusses, which is this dilemma between ethical reservations and the call for duty or dharma. Right? Well, I stop there for today and I'll come back to you with our next discussion in the next video. Hope you are enjoying it. Keep liking the channel, keep subscribing to us, keep spreading the word. We're doing something amazing here. Like and share the video and do leave your comments. Let me tell you, the comments are a huge encouragement and that allows me the chance to converse with you directly. So please do that. Please leave your comments. Please like and share the channel, and as much subscriptions as we can get, the better. So please spread the word too. Thank you so much.